Look at these hands for a second. They are turning over a wooden tub of pale, damp mash, folding it in on itself the way you would knead dough, and they have done exactly this every single morning. Not for a week, not for a year, for more than 100 years. The tub holds a bed of fermented rice bran called a nukadoko, and in a few kitchens in Japan, in Kyoto and in Kitakyushu, a family has kept one alive by hand every day for over a century. One bed got so old, about 150 years, that a research lab borrowed a scoop of it to seed an experiment. Now here is the strange part. That living bed, the one thing in this whole video old enough to outlast the people who tend it, is also the single job that dies the moment you get lazy. Skip one day of stirring and it sours and rots, so I am saving that one for last, because that heirloom bed is only one job of the thing it is made of. And the thing it is made of is the cheapest stuff in the house. When a rice mill polishes brown rice down to the white grain you buy at the store, it sweeps off a soft pale powder and throws most of it away. That powder is rice bran. In Japanese, nuka or komanuka. Free if you ask the mill for it, or a couple of dollars for a whole bag. Before the day is out, I am going to hand you 8 real jobs that one bag of this cast-off powder did around an old Japanese kitchen, and every one of them is a thing you now buy as its own separate product. A whole shelf of them. The rule in that kitchen was simple. Nothing wasted. So let me start at the bottom with the humblest of the 8. Number 1, straight back to the soil. When a household had bran left over, the bran that had already done its work, or simply more than the kitchen could use, it did not go in the trash. It went out to the garden. Rice bran is a genuine organic fertilizer, and gardeners still buy it by the bag for that exact purpose. Dug into the dirt around the vegetables, it feeds the soil as it breaks down, and it does a second garden job on top of that. A method called bokashi composting uses rice bran as the base that ferments kitchen scraps into compost, and you can buy that bran already prepared, sold in a box as bokashi bran for about $10. Same free powder from the mill, sold back to you in a box. Picture the loop for a second. The mill strips the bran off the brown rice to make it white. The kitchen puts that bran to work, sometimes for years, in all the ways I am about to show you. And when it is finally spent, it goes into the dark garden soil that grows next season's rice. The part everyone else called a byproduct closed the whole circle. Nothing wasted all the way around. But feeding the garden is the easy one. The next 2 jobs happened right at the kitchen sink. So turn on the tap and look at what is sitting in the sink. Number 2 starts with a cast iron pan, the kind you just cooked fish or garlic in. You know the problem already. You wash the pan, you dry it, and the next morning it still carries the faint smell of last night's mackerel. In an old Japanese kitchen, nobody reached for a bottle of deodorizing dish cleanser because there wasn't one to reach for. They reached back into the same bag of rice bran, a handful of the dry, pale powder, rubbed around the inside of the warm cast iron pan, and then rinsed away under the tap, and the fish and garlic smell went out with it. That is the whole trick. I want to be careful about what I am claiming here because this is a smell job and nothing grander than that. The bran is not doing anything to the pan except taking the odor off it, the way a scoop of coffee grounds pulls a stale smell out of a fridge. It is not killing anything, and it is not sanitizing anything in any medical sense. It is just a greasy iron pan that stops carrying the smell of dinner into the next day's breakfast. And today that one small job has a whole product built around it. Walk down the dish aisle and you will find a deodorizing cleanser in a bottle for $4 or $5. One more single-purpose thing for one single problem. The brand did it for free, out of the bag already sitting by the sink for the garden. But cast iron can take a rough handful of bran. The good dishes could not. Number 3 is the same sink and a gentler problem. Set the iron pan down and pick up the delicate ware, the unglazed earthenware pot, the stack of rice bowls, the thin teacups a family reached for every single day. You cannot scrub those with anything stiff. A hard pad scratches the surface and works its way into the fine crevices where the tea stain and the rice starch settle in. So the kitchen used 2 soft forms of the same rice. First, the bran itself, fine and only mildly gritty, worked into the ridges of an earthenware bowl to lift the residue without cutting the finish. And second, the cloudy water left over from rinsing raw rice, called togi-jiru, which a careful household never poured straight down the drain. That milky rinse water, run over the teacups and bowls, carried its own faint trace of bran, and loosened what plain water left behind. A gentle scour for the things too nice to attack. Today you buy that job as a scouring pad or a tub of scouring cream for a few dollars, a product designed to be abrasive. The old kitchen did the same job with the softest part of the grain, and nothing rough at all. So far, the same powder has fed the garden, freshened the iron, and cleaned the good china. 3 chores, all of them things you would expect from a kitchen. The next job you would not expect at all, because the same soft bran that scoured a teacup also lit the room after dark. Number 4 is the one that surprised me the first time I heard it, because it has nothing to do with cleaning a pan or feeding a garden. It has to do with light. The candles in your kitchen drawer today are mostly paraffin, poured out of petroleum. The candles in an old Japanese room were not. They were plant wax candles, and rice bran wax was one of the materials they were pressed from. Same bag by the sink, the same pale byproduct the mill swept off the rice. In one form, it went into the soil, and in another form it sat on a candle stand and burned slowly down through the evening. Let me be straight about the candle, because the honest version is quieter than the tall tale version. I am not telling you that every farmhouse dipped its own brand candles by the fire. What is solid is simpler than that. Rice bran carries a real wax, and that wax is one of the things traditional Japanese plant wax candles were made from. So the throwaway from the rice mill did not only scrub the kitchen. In the right hands, it became the small flame that lit the kitchen after the sun went down. A box of candles today runs you $10 or $15. The brand threw that job in for nothing. Number 5 keeps us on that very same wax, but it takes it off the candle stand and puts it back in your hand. Rice bran does not just hold a wax you can burn. That same wax is the kind that gets used in polishes and coatings, for wood and for paper. Press it out of the bran and the germ, and you get rice bran wax. And rice bran wax is what goes into a can of wood polish, which means the old kitchen could skip the can. Rub a handful of the dry bran over bare wood inside a small cloth bag, work it back and forth, and the bran's own oil and wax buff up into a soft, low sheen. There was no solvent and no tin and no chemical smell, just the grain of the wood slowly coming up under the cloth. You can picture where that would have mattered in a house built out of bare, unfinished wood. The plank floors you crossed in bare feet, the upright posts holding the roof, the engawa, that narrow wooden veranda that runs along the outer edge of a traditional home and sits out in the weather. Wood like that wants a little oil and wax worked into it to hold its color and its patina, and there was a bag of exactly that already sitting by the sink. Today, you would buy a can of wood polish or floor wax for about $10 to do the same work. And here's the part that turns the whole video on its head. When brown rice is milled down into the white rice most people eat, the bran is the part that gets stripped off and carried away as the leftover, the waste. But that stripped off waste was carrying its own wax and its own polish the entire time, and the part everyone threw away could still do real work around the house. So stop and count with me for a second, because we are only halfway down the list. One free bag of rice bran has already fed the garden, taken the smell off the iron, scoured the good china, lit the room, and waxed the wood. That is 5 separate jobs and 5 separate products you pay for one at a time. If you would rather know these old methods than keep rebuying them off a shelf, go ahead and subscribe. More forgotten household ways go up here regularly, and the next one will find you. Because the bran is not finished, and the next thing it does is something none of these first 5 jobs touched. It is about to come off the counter and go on to a person. Number 6 takes the bran off the counter, and for the first time in this whole list, puts it up against skin. Before cheap soap spread through Japan, this is what a household washed with. They called it a nukabukuro. That is just a small cloth bag, the same kind of bag we keep coming back to, only this time it is packed with rice bran instead of being emptied out over a garden. You dunk it in warm water and knead it in your hands, and after a minute the water in the basin goes cloudy and soft and milky. the bran giving its oil up into the water. Then you wash with the bag and that milky water the way you would wash with a bar of soap. I want to be plain about what that was and what it was not. It was a soap substitute. It was what people used to get clean before a cheap bar of soap was something every house could just buy. I am not going to sit here and tell you it clears your skin or does anything a doctor would put a name to, because the honest version does not need that. And the tall tale version is exactly the thing this channel refuses to do. It was the wash you had before the wash you pay for now. What gets me about this one is not what is in the bag, it is who was holding it. The nukabukuro got handed down grandmother to daughter. The habit passed along with the little pouch itself. This was the everyday wash in ordinary households through the Edo period, that long stretch from 1603 to 1868. A bar of soap and a bottle of cleanser today run you $5 or $10. The bag of bran by the sink did that job for whatever the mill charged for its sweepings, which was next to nothing. Number 7 is that same bag one more time, and now it goes into the bath. If you have ever seen an old Japanese bath, a deep wooden tub called the furo, filled with hot water and sitting in a cloud of its own steam, that is the room we are standing in now. The nukabukuro did not stay at the sink. You drop that same little bran bag straight into the bath water, and it did in the tub what it did in the basin. It was used as an alternative to soap, the whole body washed with the bag and the water it clouded, and it had been used that way since the Edo period, the same centuries as the wash at the basin. Same honest line as before. This was a soap substitute in the bath, not a treatment, not a soak that promises your skin one single thing. It was what was already sitting in the kitchen, carried the few steps into the bathroom, and put to a second use in the water. Today that is a box of bath salts or a bottle of soak for $10 or more. So count where we are. That one bag of rice bran has fed the garden, cleaned the iron and the good china, lit the room, waxed the wood, washed the body, and warmed the bath. 7 jobs, and there is exactly one left. It is the one I opened this whole thing on, the living bed a family stirs by hand every single day. It is also the only job on this list that punishes you the moment you get lazy. Miss a day, and you lose it. Number 8, the one I opened this whole thing on, the pickling bed. In an old Japanese kitchen there sat a wooden tub or a stoneware crock, and inside it was a thick, damp mash of rice bran, salt, a strip of kombu seaweed, and a little water. They called that bed a nukadoko. You push a cucumber down into it, or a wedge of daikon radish, or a handful of carrots, and you leave them buried in the bran. A day or so later you pull them out, rinse them off, and you have pickles. Deep, sour, salty pickles, the kind that sit next to a bowl of white rice. The bran does the work. This is how a household kept the summer garden's vegetables edible into the winter, and put a sharp, tangy side dish on the table for the price of the sweepings off the mill floor. The technique goes back to the 1600s, and plenty of Japanese families still keep a bed alive in the kitchen right now. A jar of good pickles at the store runs you about $5. Here is the part that got me, and it is true. A nukadoko does not have a shelf life the way that jar of pickles does. Kept upright, the bed goes on indefinitely, fed and turned and handed down from one generation to the next. The bed somebody is stirring tonight might be older than they are. It might be older than their grandmother. Some families are said to have kept the very same bed alive for well over 100 years. The same bran mash, topped up and turned by hand every day, passed along the family like the furniture. And a pot like that recently turned up somewhere you would not expect. In 2023, a research team borrowed an aged nukadoko, one that had been going for generations, to seed a fermentation experiment. A tub of pickling mash from somebody's kitchen, old enough to be a lab specimen. But that bed does not keep itself. There is one job, and it is the reason most beds do not make it. You have to stir it, by hand, all the way down to the bottom, every single day. The old instruction is blunt. Stir the bed well every day, or it turns sour in the bad way, goes moldy, and ends up somewhere you do not want your food near. Miss a day and it starts to turn. Miss a few and it is gone, and you are starting the whole thing over. That daily hand in the bran is exactly where most households quietly gave up. Somebody skips the stir for a week, the bed dies, and they decide the old method was a myth that never really worked. It worked. They just stopped stirring. So be honest about this one. A pickling bed is a daily commitment, not a thing you set on a shelf and forget about. And the wash and the bath from earlier were soap before soap, not skincare that promises your face a single thing. Now, why do you buy 8 separate products to cover all of this? It is not a conspiracy, it is a bill. When milling went industrial, the mill kept the bran and carried the free half of the rice away, and every one of these jobs came back to you later with a price tag on it. So picture those hands again, the ones from the very start, turning a tub of pale bran mash in a quiet kitchen. You know now what they are keeping alive. Not just tomorrow's pickles, a bed their mother stirred, and her mother before that kept going one plain daily minute at a time. 1 bag of rice bran, 8 jobs, and nothing wasted. Tell me the oldest thing still going in your own kitchen that somebody handed down to you, and who taught you to keep it up.